Well, welcome to the House Republican Caucus Room. We're in day 30 of our session, which is pretty amazing already. Have had some floor votes already this week, very bipartisan bills. Healthcare was the topic, the focus of topic, and we're going to be meeting in House Rules on Thursday, so there should be some more floor action. We're going to be dealing with the governor's cap and trade bill, House Bill 1314 in committee this afternoon at 1:30. And be happy to answer any questions on that, and it'll be interesting to see if it goes to appropriations or finance from there. But there's a lot of things going on, and I'd like to hand it over to Senator Schessler.
Sure, thank you very much. Good to be with you this week. Senate is moving a supplemental budget forward. We've made some minor adjustments to the House one. We'll be pulling it out of rules later today as we move forward down that path. We moved a marijuana bill out of Ways and Means last night that will be on a package pulling rules today, so we're moving ahead on those two fronts. I think later this week, probably Thursday, stay tuned, we're going to have a major announcement on higher education. Be there, please. With me this week is going to be Senator Warnick. We talk about economic development and job growth, and I think before she gets into these things, important thing to remember is we represent the entire state. There were 44,000 net jobs in King County last year, 33,000 in the rest of the state combined. That's not the situation we'd like. We'd like every county to be a winner, bigger winners. We continue to push had a really good press conference on the rollout for Senate Bill 5735 from Senator Erickson and others. We're happy. We had bipartisan turnout for the press conference. We have ideas to fix both problems there, and I'm really excited that we had a comprehensive rollout of ideas that will move us forward on affordable energy, good environmental policy for the state of Washington. So. Roll it back over to my counterparts in the House.
No, I don't have much. I focus primarily on labor and economic development issues, and this week we heard some pretty high-profile bills about gender parity pay act and things like Boeing tax credits or aerospace tax credits and job metrics, and some train safety issues. But some things that'll probably be a little bit more combative than some of the things that we tend to agree on. So, but I'll happy to answer any questions on labor and economic development.
Senator Warnick.
Well, as Senator Schessler brought up, I'm chair of the Ag, Water, and Rural Economic Development Committee in the Senate. That's a mouthful. But we had two bills that I'm pretty proud to get out of our committee today, and it was bipartisan. We had the Main Street tax bill, which will increase a program that's been running so successfully. We started out with 13 communities that took advantage of that, and that tax credit is if local businesses want to contribute to a downtown development, they can get a B&O tax credit. My own company, I've done that for years with my community, and I've seen the benefits of that. So this bill would increase that benefit from 1.5 million or that match to 3 million from the state. But that brings forth so much more money from the private sector, and it saves our downtowns. I've seen that in my own communities, in my district, and looking at the map, there's more on the west side, and these are small communities, more on the west side that are being impacted even than the east side of the mountains. The other bill that we got out bipartisan support was the curb bill. This is a bill that Senator Hatfield and I worked on last year, and the primary sticking point, among other inclusions in that bill, was the median wage provision. Right now, anybody who applies for a curb loan has to guarantee median wage. 100% of the jobs would be under median wage. A lot of the new businesses that are locating can't meet that requirement. The governor vetoed the bill last year, even though we had strong bipartisan support all the way through. This year, he came back and said he would support 25% of the jobs could be under the median wage. These are for counties, including some of the counties on this side that have large industries, large high-paying jobs in one sector, but not in another sector. Grant County, for example, we have the data centers, we have some of the manufacturing plants, but the community of Royal City doesn't have that, and they tried to attract some folks through a curb grant and couldn't do it because of that median wage requirement. So we have done what the governor is asking and lowered it down to 75% median and 25% below median. And that came out of our committee also. So hopefully that'll help with some of our smaller communities' expansions.
Representative J.T. Wilcox, I represent the 2nd District, and I am floor leader for the House Republicans. We're beginning to see a little bit of floor action now. Not a lot of bills have made it through the process yet, and the ones that have come out are not, they're important, but probably not really exciting from a news point of view. I also serve on the Finance and Appropriations Committees, and I think a couple of things that we're interested in seeing is first, the governor's carbon tax. Is that going to come through finance? I hope it does. And then with a small majority, what kind of a budget are we going to see from Ross Hunter, and can he get 50 Democrat votes on a budget?
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any floor action this week, Senator Shessler?
Yes, we anticipate being on the floor tomorrow, Jordan. We've got a calendar of past bills. We really want to get the supplemental budget out. We've got, of the priorities, that's probably the most important. So expect floor action tomorrow. Expect floor action on Friday, that we start moving things through the system as they normally do. And we'll have probably more quantity on Friday, but I think supplemental budget is first step forward in working together, both sides of the aisle, both sides of the rotunda, fixing some of the things that supplemental budgets are intended to do.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Budget tomorrow. Okay.
I'll ask the mandatory transportation question. Where are you on that? And is there going to be a Senate bill coming out on that before you guys, prior to really hardcore negotiations?
John, that's assuming that nothing's been going on and people have been working hard. We're going to caucus on transportation today and update our members, because we want them to know the information at the earliest possible point. So when we leave here after rules, we're going into caucus and we're going to brief our members.
How far are you guys even close with the Ds, or are you still?
I think that Senator Hobbs and Melosha are spending a lot of quality time with Senators Fain and King. And if they weren't having quality time, we wouldn't be caucusing on it.
Any other questions?
Senator, is Senator Jean Colwell's marijuana bill going to get a hearing in the Senate?
Yes, it's scheduled for a hearing on Friday in Commerce and Labor.
Of the marijuana bills, do you have one that you think is the most workable?
The only one I've had the opportunity to actually see, Jim, is the one we passed out of Ways and Means last night, because I don't serve on Commerce and Labor or Healthcare. There's a lot of pieces to it. That's one piece, and it's going to come out of rules today.
Is that the Rivers bill?
Yes. It's the Rivers Hobbs bill, or Hatfield. Rivers and Hatfield are doing it together.
Does your caucus, do your various caucuses think you have enough votes to potentially suspend 1351? And how are you going to deal with that sort of budget bugaboo this session, since both of the budget leaders on both sides seem to think that there's no way to pay for it?
Well, I'll be interested to see how the House version of it looks like. And obviously then the Senate will be forced to do something as well.
Yeah, I think, clearly that's a question for Ross Hunter because he's got to produce the first budget. It'd be interesting to see if he follows the governor's pattern on that. And if there is any changes to 1351, that there's no caucus here that's in a position to do it by itself. There's going to be a bipartisan solution.
So is
Senator
that,
Schessler, do you think you have 2/3 vote in the Senate to amend or suspend the initiative?
Well, if we don't know what we're doing with it, it'd be really hard to count votes yet.
okay, has
So
your
should we
side
take that to mean-
presented any, has your side pushed everyone and said, hey, let's do this?
You know, the good news is that Senator Hill and Senator Hargrove are spending a lot of quality time together. And I think, I would bet that Senator Hill has already started his count of how many pizzas and Diet Cokes it takes to do the budget this time.
Are you doing that quality time in the House too, or is Representative Hunter, including you, House R's, in that similar to what's been going on in the Senate the last few years?
You know, not having been in the Senate, I can't make a direct comparison, but I think that there, to use the same language, there is a lot of quality time, and Bruce and Ross are becoming much better friends than they ever expected to be.
To clarify on 1351, the answer to Melissa's question, it sounds like whatever the Democrats do, you're willing to do. I mean, you're putting it all on Democrats to send something from the House. And in the House, it sounds like the R's are waiting for the Democrats to propose. So from your view, the Democrats have to decide what the legislature will do on 1351. Is that right?
It'd be a good start.
So you're ready to support what they'll do?
Well, it'd be a good start. I mean, if we don't know what it is, how do we count votes? You can't count votes for what you haven't seen.
But your members don't have any desire to do anything at this point?
Well, clearly, Andy and Jim are spending a lot of quality time together looking at options.
Do you guys not talk before these things? I'm just curious. Or do you just not get answers on things we ask questions to? I'm just curious. Because, what is quality time? Can you elaborate on what quality time might mean?
Well, let's keep it a little bit light and humorous. But it's spending a lot, quality time is a lot of hard work together, looking at all of the options on all of the sections of the budget. And that's really important because last 2 years when the Senate let off with the budget, they were working every night, looking at options and briefings and potential solutions. And we got a joke about pizzas, Diet Cokes, quality time. We have to keep a little bit of a sense of humor. I think it really helps in public policy.
Do you anticipate any changes to Initiative 594 getting the 2/3 they would need in this session?
I haven't seen a bill come out of committee yet, so until the bill clears committee, you don't even think about a vote count yet, Jim.
There were hearings on bills in the House yesterday. They haven't come out of committee yet, but does the House Republican Caucus want changes to Initiative 594 that they think that they can get passed?
I think there have been some good ideas put forward, but my understanding is that the chair of the House Judiciary Committee is not intending on moving any of the bills.
There's bills being heard in the Senate today that would attempt to change teacher evaluations and kind of maybe get the state's No Child Left Behind waiver back. Has the Senate Majority Coalition or the Senate Republican Caucus taken a position on that bill and whether that's a priority this session to get through?
It's on the list of possibilities. We haven't, we're still just a little bit early to start counting votes and making final decisions.
Just to press a little more on the House R's and the budget, do you expect the joint Republican-Democratic budget to come out of the House, or do you think, similar to what you've seen in the Senate in the past few years?
I think that there's goodwill to do that, and it kind of depends. Again, the majorities run the process, and are the House Democrats interested in coming out with a solution that would be acceptable in a bipartisan way that can pass, or are they going to have a negotiating position that comes out first? And I think that's really determined more by their internal caucus politics. I mean, we're certainly ready to collaborate. And I think both options are alive at this point. It seems to me that that's really a question for Ross. It all depends on the approach that he takes.
Is the change to 1351 going to be directly part of the budget, or is that going to be something separate?
Well, I think I've taken Melissa's question and turn it on its head. She asked, do we have 2/3 of a vote to suspend 1351? I think a more difficult question is, do you have 51 votes or 50 votes to raise $2.4 billion in new taxes? They're the same question, right? Just asked in a different way.
Okay, but one's a 2/3 to
Right.
dump it, and the other is
But
50.1%.
But okay, so but if you don't have the 2/3 to overturn it, the second question is, do you have 50 votes to raise $2.4 billion in taxes, or do you have the political 51 votes or 50 votes to cut $2.4 billion in other social services? So I would put those two questions together when we talk about what type of budget we're going to send.
Come at you this way, is there a chance of getting caught between 2/3 and 50.1 and ending up with, you can't get 2/3 to suspend it, and you can't get 50% plus 1 to pass it? Is that a likely possibility?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility, but it's been something that we've been facing, for the last 6 months, and there's enough goodwill and intelligence in the group, I think, to find a resolution in the end.
And I'd like to add one other point to that, and that's the point from the school's perspective. I have a lot of rural schools that, in order to meet that initiative, are going to have to build classrooms. And they don't currently, it's very difficult for them to pass their bonds. And in some instances, where that initiative is going to make them build school buildings when they have declining student enrollment. So I think it's not only just the budget piece here, but it's also what is the real impact of this initiative, in our communities and our schools. So I think that's got to be a part of the discussion as well.
Is it your expectation that if they move up the revenue forecast, that both chambers will get a little more exciting, and the calm that we see now will become a little stormy and things will start to move a lot faster? Is that your expectation in both caucuses, that we don't wait till March, but we start?
It is mine. I think we will. We have a policy cutoff coming up next week, but serving on the capital budget in the past years in the House, we waited for that forecast so that we know what our box was going to be. And I think having that forecast earlier will help us get through those nights and quality times quicker.
Well, it's a two-part process. So we've got a February forecast now. I think eliminating the March forecast is what allows us to have a sense of urgency around February instead of March.
Has there, given some of the issues brought up with 1351, like Representative Short, you raised regarding classroom space and such, has there been thought of revisiting a plan in the capital budget to maybe bond lottery revenues or something like that to get money for classroom space?
Well, I think have a capital budget expert here, but we still have a total debt limit in this state.
Constitutional debt limit.
So you can't exceed the constitutional debt limit as a state. But let's go to Pasco in Franklin County. They have been the fastest growing part of the state until just now. They have no bond limit left as a school district. So even if the voters enthusiastically gave them 60% for the bonds, they don't need bond capacity. So it's a very, very big problem that isn't easily solved.
And it's tough to get those bonds passed in a local district. Moses Lake, for example, has a levy or a bond today to add a new high school, because we have about 1,000 students more in our high school than should be. And I don't know if that's going to pass. Ellensburg hasn't passed a remodel of a junior high or a middle school. So it's tough for those local folks to get the bonds passed as well. So we have to really look at it from a holistic point.
Are there talks going on in either of the chambers about levy reform?
I think the conversations have been going on for a long time, but nobody's figured out exactly what that looks like yet. We know what the courts have said, we know there's interest, but I don't think anybody's there yet on either side of the aisle.
I think that's a positive possibility, and one of the advantages of levy reform is rather than simply being a tax increase, as a lot of the proposals from the other side are, this is one that actually addresses tax rates in some of the poorest parts of the state too.
I think one of the things that I've been looking at from we hear from a lot of the folks that live in our communities. And so as we look at any kind of levy reform, I think we need to make sure that there's adequate safeguards that property taxes can't become just the automatic vehicle without some kind of constraint in those increases. But I agree with JT. I think there is a movement afoot to try and help, some of those areas and create more of a leveling, if you will. But anyway, we'll see if any proposals.
Another conversations I've had have been around creating a mechanism so that if we do any type of levy swap or levy reform, we make sure that you can't use the levy process to trigger another constitutional crisis down the road. If you remember, McCleary is triggered by the fact that local levies became a greater percentage of the education budget than what the court wanted, right? So if we're going to do anything with levies, then we also need to make sure that we cap or reform levies in a way so that local school districts can't trigger another lawsuit down the road by increasing the reliance of education spending on levies to end run McCleary again. So I think that's a key component to any type of levy reform bill. Does that make sense? Does it?
It makes
Okay,
sense.
okay.
Yes.
I talk like a professor.
You are a professor. Yeah.
Regarding levy reform, have you guys sort of heard the concerns from some local school districts that if you did some sort of COLA, it would push a lot of costs onto those districts that fund a lot of their salaries with local levy dollars? Is that part of the conversation right now as far as if we do a COLA, how do we need to address that issue as far as providing levy money?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That's been part of the discussion.
Okay.
Can I bring up something we haven't talked about yet, and that's the port slowdown? Huge impacts to the east side of the mountains. 4 of us from the east side, and that our ag producers, we have one hay producer, Timothy hay producer in Ellensburg, has lost over $7 million because of this slowdown. And he's going to lose his contract for 5 years possibly with the Asian country that he's been shipping to. So it's a huge issue for our side of the mountains. Now I'm starting to hear about businesses that are impacted on this side of the mountains. What's frustrating is we can't do an awful lot about it. We can talk about it, we can do resolutions, we can send letters, but I'm hoping you folks can keep letting your readers know how frustrating it is for everyone in the state that this isn't being taken care of yet. We're losing jobs, we're losing contracts for years to come. And so hopefully there will be some type of a resolution soon. And I know we have to talk to the other Washington about that, but I'm really hoping that you folks can keep that pressure on as well.
About 2 more questions. Or no more.
Or no more questions? Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.